before I forced myself to use a camera that could not help me at all, I really found myself kind of falling into a norm of what I think an image should be, or what I think an acceptable cinematic image is, without really tapping into me and figuring out what I want to do. This camera has taught me more about myself as an image maker, or dare I say as an artist, than any technologically advanced camera could ever dream of.
From Los Angeles, California, this is the Film Industry Brief with your host, Justin Phillip.
Yes, the FX5 is out. It is released. Oh my God, it is here. 5K 3x2 open gate, XOC and RAW for everyone. You know, the FX5 is jam-packed with some wild features in a very tiny box that makes me think back to when I was first jumping behind a camera 10 years ago. What was available for me back then was, if you were under the same mindset of you got to have RAW in a tiny package, the only thing that was really available other than the EOS M, if you wanted to hack that thing and go through that rigmarole, I guess an easier option over that was what I had, was the original Blackmagic Pocket Cinema camera. And it tapped out at 1080p, 30 frames per second, had no autofocus, no active stabilization. It did, however, have false color, so there is that, but it had massive RAW files of the Cinema DNG format, just massive, massive files. Beautiful sensor, we all remember, right? So it is wild to see how far the technology has come. But something happened to me almost 2 years ago. And, you know, this is going to sound like a crazy leap, but there is a connection here, so bear with me. But this has been my daily driver for nearly 2 years now. This is a camera that was released in 1954, and I know it doesn't do video, but trust me on this, there is a connection here. There is no electronics whatsoever in this camera, right? This is literally just a box with a lever, one of the best advanced levers ever made, if I do say so. You know, a little knob. This little piece of technology here on the top is just, well, we don't need to talk about what that is. This is an accessory. Without that, though, this camera is just very, very basic. The point is that this camera has taught me more about myself as an image maker, or dare I say as an artist, than any technologically advanced camera could ever dream of. And that's kind of what I want to talk about today. When I stripped myself away from everything, and I started using this old ass camera, this is a 72-year-old camera, I started using this daily, forcing myself to use this. And I found out things about how I create an image. It literally runs parallel with my personal life. And I didn't really ever realize that. But if I look at some of the images that I've created with this camera, and bear with me, I know it's film photos versus video, but this all relates, right? It all relates because an image is an image. It doesn't matter what box you're using to make the image with. The camera in your hand will never change the image that you create as an artist. Making myself use this old archaic camera with very basic functions, I'm left to my own devices. I got to do everything. And what I find out by doing that for the past, again, almost 2 years, in October, it'll be 2 years I've been using this thing as my daily driver. And I realized like, oh, my work is very chaotic. It's like, oh yes, well, that makes sense. My life is very chaotic. A lot of it seems confrontational. Well, that makes sense. If you watch this YouTube channel, yeah, I am quite the confrontational person. It's interesting to see that. I never really understood that about myself. Here's a little bit of a difference. I made Deadline within the 2 years that I've been using this M3. Now, I didn't shoot Deadline, so shout out to Miguel. He shot that and color graded that. He's a very talented guy. I know him because he's here in LA. I've worked with him on jobs, so I'm well aware of his talent. That's one of the reasons why I brought him on to shoot Deadline for me. But I was the director. I had a complete vision of how I wanted that thing to go. You can ask Miguel about that if you want. I would predict he would say that I'm a bit stubborn or at least chaotic. What I'm trying to say here is that I had the vision of that film during the time of using this camera. It even influenced the work that I was directing and writing and creating, producing, right? It has impacted everything. Before I forced myself to use a camera that could not help me at all, I really found myself kind of falling into a norm of what I think an image should be, or what I think an acceptable cinematic image is, without really tapping into me and figuring out what I want to do. I did a workshop with Greg Williams 3 years ago. If you don't know who Greg Williams is, you can look him up. He's a quite amazingly talented, at this point, famous celebrity photographer in a nutshell, but talented image maker nonetheless. It is such an important thing that he gave me in a simple phrase. But the point of it is to say is that don't do what everyone else is doing, because that's not going to separate you. It's not going to help you. It's actually going to be detrimental to you if you just find yourself as like a cog in the wheel. You're on social media, you're flicking through, and you think, yeah, this is what is happening. This is what gets the likes. Look how many followers this guy has or this woman has. Look what they're doing. This is what I need to do. But Greg Williams taught me something different. Basically, it's the notion that we all have something unique to bring to the table. And for me, I could never figure out what that was, because I think I was relying so much on the technology or letting it influence me so much to the point that what I was creating wasn't really stand out and wasn't interesting or weird. I like weird stuff, and I wasn't able to really hone that until I was left with a camera that had no way to help me do anything. That's the point of what I'm trying to make here. Because everybody's making their hot takes and their reviews on this new FX5. I'm not feeling anything, right? And it's very similar when the ZR came out last year. Shout out to Blake. I was able to run around with that camera for a night in downtown LA and kind of mess around and do what I do. Again, that was the ZR review was also during the time when I was using this M3 as my daily driver. So these things were already influencing how I was working. What I'm trying to share with you all is I would encourage you to strip yourself away from the tech if you have the opportunity to do so, right? Because I know, again, it's a big difference, right? Some of you guys need video for your clients, but the reality is that it doesn't all have to be for a client. If you think about someone like Gary Winogrand, his most memorable stuff to this day was all stuff that he did for himself, right? His client work is nothing that we know about or talk about. We share the stuff that he did for himself, his personal work. That's the stuff that tends to live on. Create the image only the way that you know how to create it. That I do think that when you rely so much on the technology to help you create those images, it's detrimental to finding out the type of artist you really are. It's not doing you a service. You think at the time that it is, because you're like, wow, there's so many cool tools. This is amazing. The camera has this, it has this, it has this. But if it had none of that, if you stripped it away of everything and it was just a black box with a shutter and you can change the speed of the shutter and you can change your iris and you can change your focus, and that's all you really have. You can kind of control the ISO, but once it's locked, it's locked. If you paint yourself in a little box, you quickly find out what you're actually capable of. And it sucks. It will suck. It continues to suck. But that's because you don't have any technology to rely on. You're at the mercy of what only you can do. But the beauty of it is if you keep the repetition of it and you just keep going at it and you keep your endurance up, you will find out things about you that make your work unique. And then you can go, okay, this is cool. Let me lean into this. Confrontational for me. Chaos for me. Weird, ghostly images for me. But it's cool. It's unique. Not everybody's doing it. I couldn't have tried to make images like that if my life depended on it with a camera like an FX5 or even this A7C II that I'm filming myself with, or the FX6 that's in that cabinet back there. These things are great. And again, I understand it's stills versus video. I know, but get over it, right? It's all the same shit. These frames move at 24 frames per second. Enough of the bullshit. Right? A frame is a frame is a frame. So that's the school of thought I come from, if you're having a hard time connecting the dots here. So I guess that's the point of it. Am I stoked about the FX5? Sure, I guess. We can all be stoked about it. It's not the first camera to have RAW. It's not the first camera to have amazing autofocus. It's not the first camera to have a lot of things. It's just not. Is it the first of its special kind, I guess, of being this FX5? Sure, great, sure. What I'm saying is this hype around it all it gets a little tiring. And if you're someone new and fresh, you're just entering the universe of all of this, or you're just getting into film school, or you're starting your path, you don't have to get yourself in a gerbil wheel about specs and gear and all of this. It doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. I think about me in the beginning with the original OG Black Pocket. Pretty basic camera compared to what we have nowadays. But I do feel like some of those little short films I made 10 years ago are a little bit more impactful than some of the short films I made a couple years ago. It's weird of me to blame it on the gear, right? It is weird of me. But what I'm trying to say is that it's all a crutch in a way. Maybe it's because of my skateboarding background or whatever it is, but something beautiful will come out of consistent failure. Think in the world of skateboarding how many times you slam over and over until you finally land the trick. And that's what makes all the slams worth it. Akin to this film camera. I keep hitting this stupid self-timer. Horrible design flaw, but what did they know in 1954, am I right? Constantly beating myself over the head, trying to take crazy film photos the way that I operate. It is a little bit like insanity. And some people might call the skateboarding insanity, doing it over and over. I guess it feels like insanity in the moment because you're trying it over and over and over. But then when you land the trick or you get a photo that you're super stoked on, then somehow the insanity turns into a revelation. I don't know if I've ever had anything like that happen to me with any other camera, ever. I just wanted to kind of talk about that as my hot take on the FX5, right? And, share a little bit of honest insight about it. And there come the gear police now to get me.
That's the sound of the police!